have Hans Grundberg, our Yemen Envoy here, just brief the Council, and we'll now brief you. Hans, please, and then we'll take some questions.
Thanks. Good evening. Very glad to be speaking to you today here from New York. I just briefed the Council, and you would have heard me updating on the recent worrying wave of military escalation. It's needless to say a challenging time for the prospects of starting political dialogue. But let me reiterate, military options will not result in sustainable solutions for Yemen. Since I took office last September, I have been discussing with the parties and with diverse group of Yemenis, as well as regional and international actors, ways to make progress towards a political settlement. I said in this regard to the Council that I am developing a framework that will lay the foundations for a structured political process to the conflict in Yemen. I will therefore, as from next week and for the upcoming weeks ahead, hold bilateral consultations with the Yemeni political parties. In parallel to working on the framework, I'm also exploring ways to more immediately de-escalate the violence. Yemenis cannot wait until the parties are tired of fighting. And as we know by now, there will always be one more battle, one more win to pursue, one more territory to control. And I therefore urge the parties to prioritize the needs of Yemenis and de-escalate the fighting. And I hope that they will take this opportunity to actively engage in our consultations, develop the framework, and work with me to chart a path out of this conflict towards a political settlement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. James?
Special Envoy, there was strong criticism of you from the Ambassador of the United Arab Emirates. She said in the Council that what she'd heard was the continued failure of the political process under the leadership of the UN to deal realistically and firmly with the continuously intransigent position of the Houthi militias. She then ended her comments with these words: "We can only ask Mr. Grundberg, when will the appeasement of this terrorist group end?" What is your reaction to her?
It's not my position to hear from this podium start discussing what members of the Council mean and doesn't mean on this. No, and that I hope I will be able to engage in close discussions, as I have had with her and with all other members of the Council, to make sure that we understand. So that is something that I will look forward to discuss with the Ambassador of the UAE further down the road. So that's.
Thank you. Ibtisam Azim from Al Arab Al Jadid newspaper. I have a follow-up on the political framework that you talked about.
Yeah.
First, why do you think this will be different from what previous envoys did? Why should parties to the conflict now listen more to that? What's different on that? And then my question on the humanitarian front, and the fact that the UN is having and facing a huge difficulty on financing. Do you believe that countries are using aid and financing as weapon in this conflict? Thank you.
So what's different? I don't think that, to be absolutely frank, the approach that I have when it comes to trying to find a durable and sustainable settlement of the conflict in Yemen is not something that you automatically need to put in comparison with what others have done. I think that what is clear, and if you look at what I am trying to achieve, is to lay the foundations for a sustainable solution of the conflict in Yemen that has not been there for quite a number of years. If you look back, the last time the parties engaged in serious consultations with each other on trying to find a sustainable way forward was in 2016. And since then, there hasn't been a serious attempt in putting that in place. I think it's urgent that we have that in place. That urgency is one of the reasons for me to push for that framework and that approach. Then I didn't really understand your second question.
The fact that the UN is facing a huge financial difficulties for their programs. Do you believe that the lack of the financial support to the UN programs has also to do with the fact that some countries are maybe using aid as a weapon in Yemen? Thank you.
I think that question leads me to speculations on issues which I am not in a position to speculate about. So on that, I will not have a good answer to you, to be absolutely frank, because that's not the core part of my mandate and what I work on. Thanks.
Thank you, Special Envoy. It's Pamela Falk from CBS News. There was one mention of FSO Sapphire, the vessel. Can you give an update? People are very worried about the potential oil spill, and as time goes on, it gets worse. Thank you.
Thank you. No, on the FSO tanker, and that was, I think, was raised as well in my first stakeout in September. And as you know, there has been a considerable amount of efforts in trying to achieve results and make progress on this. These efforts from the UN side are led by my colleague David Gressley, the resident coordinator. I understand that there are progress being made in this regard. But those progresses, as always in Yemen, need to be solidified in order to be taken forward. So in that sense, I think that what I want to do here is just wish David Gressley all the best and provide all possible support in his difficult effort in that regard.
Just to be clear, the inspectors have been allowed on the vessel?
Not yet, but there are attempts, and there are, as you understand, there is a need for an agreement between the parties for that to take place, and those agreements are in the process of being achieved. And I think there was a statement issued by David Gressley a couple of weeks ago in that sense. So there are steps being taken forward, which the Council here has welcomed.
Thank you.
Michelle.
Thank you, Special Envoy. Michelle Nichols from Reuters. During this most recent military escalation, do you have any concerns that there's been increased external support, military support for the Houthis or the Saudi-led coalition? And what's your assessment of the US involvement in trying to ease tensions?
No, on the last bit, I have to say that I have experienced, since I started, a strong level of coordination and support from all permanent 5 members of the Security Council. If you have seen the local members of the ambassadors of the P5 countries to Yemen have stepped up their engagement and their coordination. That also goes in line with a number of other countries which do reach out to me that are engaged in trying to find solutions, and they do reach out to me, and there are coordinated efforts in that regard. So when it comes to the efforts of the international community as a whole, I have to say that we are in a situation where coordination and joint efforts are being carried out. When it comes to the US in particular, again, I'm not here to judge particular efforts from particular member states, but the cooperation and the coordination that I have with them is as good as with anyone else.
External support? Do you have any concerns about an increase in external military support for either side?
The question is it's difficult to answer, because whatever I answer, it's going to be seen as either confirmation or non-confirmation of what you're trying to ask. I would want to understand where that question is heading. I just, on that, I can just say that when it comes to weapons in Yemen, I think that there are sufficiently with weapons as it is right now for more to be delivered there. So that's the only point I can say.
Ray,
okay,
and
thanks.
then we have to the Special Envoy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Special Envoy. Ray Bouchafara from Sky News Arabia. The Houthis have been refusing any dialogue initiatives. They have even refused to meet some UN officials in Sana'a, according to reports. As Special Envoy, do you feel peace can be achieved with this group? Thank you.
As I mentioned in my stakeout in September, when I was last time in New York, I underlined the need for direct, close, and unconditional engagement with the Special Envoy, with myself. And that, I think, is more necessary than ever. The fact that I have not yet been to Sana'a is in that regard a matter of concern. However, that doesn't mean that the engagement that I have with Ansar Allah is non-existent. I meet with their chief negotiator, Mohammed Abdel Salam, in Muscat in numerous occasions, and I exchange issues with him, and I also meet together with, and my office in Sana'a and myself are in tight exchanges with representatives of Ansar Allah in Sana'a as well. But that doesn't replicate, or that is not enough. There is a need for visits and regular visits of myself to Sana'a, and I hope that that can be achieved in the near future.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.